Hello everyone, it's Eric. Welcome to another ranking. This one with a series different from the usual type I cover. Oftentimes, when I cover the series that have a lot of battles, it's someone like Eddie FRB who's been doing a lot of battles for a while, or Freshy Canal who has a team to help him put out several battles each year. Today's series of focus is Triple Rap Battles, run by Triple Stabber or Trip. This series has 34 rap battles despite starting in just 2022. And that's super impressive for someone who's mainly doing it on their own. Mind you, 19 of those battles did come out in the first year, and I want to begin this video with an overview of Trip's series. I think Trip's had an impressive journey since starting as a creator, and I can see that entire run in just a 2-year span, and that's really interesting. You can see the improvements and changes as you go through time. Trip was always a good artist and editor, but the videos have gotten cleaner and more involved over time. He had some fun audios early on, but now he has a bigger focus on musicality in his battles, trying to make them as fun to listen to as possible. His writing started out very hard to follow, due to the attempts at creative rhyme schemes that don't really hit, and now, he still has that problem, but I think it's better now, more of a nitpick these days. When watching these battles, I had fun revisiting the oldest ones that have some of the funnier examples of the problems, but also remembering how much I loved them when they came out. And I think the style and creativity of Trip's battles is something I appreciate a lot more after this binge and ranking. Unlike some notable series like Animation vs. Anything, Triple Rap Battles rarely focuses on characterization. There's not a whole lot of in-character interactions or lines in the same vein as Grunkle's stand on the golf cart. But Trip makes his battles stand out in different ways, and I really like those. Especially while making this video, I have become very attached to some of these projects, and for that reason, I am very excited to present you with my ranking of every Triple Rap Battle. But before we can get to that best stuff, let's start from the bottom. Number 34, Giratina vs. Orochi. Sorry to begin really negative, but this joins Zuko vs. Jack Frost and Willy Wonka vs. Flint Lockwood on my list of least favorite battles of the decade. This will sound mean, and if you like this battle, that is great. However, I think it kinda does everything wrong. Visually, it's the worst that he's done. The AMV is weird and rarely looks good, the subtitles are almost never synced up right, and they strike me as very rushed. Also, this one's a personal thing, but the fonts make me want to die for some reason. Now, video's not really the most important thing for me, but the other aspects are not great either. UK Gloom gives a solid performance in terms of the energy, but it doesn't feel like Giratina at all, and there clearly wasn't great direction. Danny doesn't really have the powerful voice or the ominous energy I'd expect from this Orochi guy, based on how he looks, and his flow is not very good overall. To round out the audio discussion, the beat is ridiculous. It's a super loud rock beat, and it just does not work with these wild rhyme schemes that go all over the place. And speaking of those schemes, the writing is all over the place. Much of Trip's earliest writing was very focused on rhyme schemes you wouldn't see anywhere else, and in this battle's case, that is for good reason. I don't feel like saying much about the writing, but just lines like, "You know this a flow switch" should not exist, especially when it barely was a flow switch anyway. But it's so bad that when I typed that line out in Google Docs, it tried to correct my grammar. I don't know what this battle did to me, and I know Trip doesn't think too much about this project in general, but I think about it a lot more than I should because, for whatever reason, I very heavily dislike this stuff. Number 33, The Game vs. the Mandela Effect. What happened here? Following Trip's first battle with a very well-received rhyme scheme focus, Trip seemed to go a little more ambitious, and sometimes less is more. This writing is very nonsensical. There are very few lines I can pull from this and remember because it's mostly just an attempt to sound really fast. It mostly sounds like a freestyle, really. Neither rapper was super experienced at the time, and I think even experienced VAs would have struggled with rhymes like these. I could also note that the video is hard to follow text and the beat choice is weird, but the whole thing is just very messy, and I don't really feel like revisiting it ever again. Only 2022 Trip could have made this one. Number 32, Morbius vs. Warden. Not really better than the game. It does have one funny moment when Lexi M yells "It's Morbin time" in a very serious voice. Props to her. The writing is a little cleaner, but still very hard to follow, and maybe worse at points because Taiga is really hard to understand. The voice effect and weird rhyme schemes do not go well together with her voice. This might be Trip's worst sounding battle. In terms of individual lines, I only remember things like, "You're such a joke, you came out on April 1st. That generic type of line is not really my thing. There's very little substance here, it feels rushed like some of Tripp's others, and while there is a little fun to be had thanks to Lexi, it's not really worth seeking out. Number 31, Snow Pea vs Snow Golem. At first, I had nothing in the script. I was gonna just leave it at this, but it has 10,000 views, so people have clearly seen it. To me, this has these same writing issues as the battles below it, tons of rhyme schemes that don't mesh well together or they overlap and they just don't sound good. Admittedly, I do get a lot of enjoyment from the scheme, I'm through, something like the pole, crossing the Pluto, because of how funny the emphasis is and Dilly's clearly trying so hard. It's also the first battle where I can compliment the art, and that gives it an edge above the bottom 3. Tripp's a great artist, and their style has improved since 2022, but the art in this one still looks quite good, and the bottom 3 had no art, so this video is definitely much more entertaining than those bottom ones, even if it's messy. Overall, this battle was definitely not the most carefully crafted thing ever, but it does earn some praise for the great art. Number 30, Crypto Bro vs Astrology Girl. There were some new ideas here. The editing was the most ambitious at the time, and the vocal performances had a lot of ad-libs. Unfortunately, I don't think either of these new ideas work that well. The video is stylish, but the lyrics are once again hard to pin down because the subtitles aren't just at the bottom of the screen. Typography can work, but this one's not a great example of it. Additionally, the ad-libs are as loud as the main vocals, if not louder, so I can't even understand what the VAs are saying in terms of their lines, and even the battles below this didn't really have that issue, even though the performances here are a bit stronger than the bottom 4. I also don't really like the beat for this one, but otherwise, I just don't think much of this battle, even when I'm watching it. I appreciate Tripp trying new things early on like this, and it makes sense that it wouldn't hold up so far down the line. That said, it's a bit of a hard one to pay attention to because of how hard it is to decipher what's really going on. Number 29, Tic-Tac-Toe vs Hangman. This one's actually pretty fun. The intro says it was written in 2 hours, and that's impressive, but it also has some really fun lines given that time frame. I really like Hangman saying, "You haven't but 2 letters while I have the whole alphabet," as a very strong parallel and flex. Frankly, the whole first verse is catchy, even if it says noughts and crosses twice. Some of the ideas and lines like Xing out zeros and drawing blanks are good punches that are easy to understand. There's definitely some fun in here, and it's not brought down by the flow quite as much as the bottom 5. That said, the Hangman side might have the worst flow in the series. The first 4 lines are so slow and have so many pauses, it kind of feels like Tripp forgot to finish the lines, or didn't write them with the beat in mind. One big plus of the battle is that it's the first one Tripp did with animation, and that's great to see because Tripp is a talented animator, but they haven't done that many times. All in all, I get plenty of enjoyment from this one, and while some parts feel rushed, because they were, I'm really glad it exists because it's one with unique ideas and strong punchlines. Number 28, Guardian vs Gordo. This battle is better constructed than the ones I've named so far. In terms of flow, there's nothing that rough. The rhythm is consistent the whole way through, and I can't remember any slip-ups. However, I can't remember any lines either. I just rewatched the battle as I'm typing this script, and apparently there was a no fishes joke, but I didn't even remember that until just now. Therefore, my main complaint here is that Tripp's rhyme scheme heavy style is not always conducive to a good rap battle, because it takes away from the actual disses. There is not a single good line in this entire battle from what I remember, and while Guardian vs 1 has pretty good flow, I just don't get into it because it sounds rhythmically proficient nonsense. There are other merits here like select visual ideas, and Swiss gives some pretty fun line deliveries every once in a while, but this is the most forgettable Tripp battle of Hull. Not awful, but empty. Number 27, Skyblock vs Nuzlocke. Not much to say here really. Flow's easier to follow than Guardian, but I don't know these guys at all. I didn't catch a single line. Additionally, I don't love the beat and Razzy's not at his best here. The best thing is Bird's performance. Ultimately though, I think this battle is kinda average. His voice is nice, and there's nothing super bad here, but it's lacking in notable positives. Number 26, Red vs Shedinja. This battle is super long. Definitely one of Tripp's longest. Generally, I don't mind long battles, but they have to stay engaging, and this one's writing has more misses than hits. I always like the ERB reference, and there are some good puns here and there, but I think some of this wordplay is just very odd, like the whole "I contempt your conquest, my condiments turn compliments," whatever he said. It doesn't help that the audio is also kind of boring because the beat's a very odd choice. It's not like anything else Trip has used, and I wouldn't say it fits that well. All in all, it's not bad, and it did introduce the awesome trend of custom art combining the VAs with the characters they play, but otherwise, it's a very unnoteworthy 2023 Trip battle, and definitely his weakest of that year. Number 25, Microwave vs. Refrigerator. What a ridiculous project. This had potential to have some easily understandable jokes like tic-tac-toe, but instead has some of the weirdest flow in any rap battle maybe ever. The fridge side is actually pretty regular, with conventional flow that's not that hard to follow. That said, I don't remember any lines I like on that side. Fortunately, Fight Marker as Microwave saves the day. He carries so hard. The writing on his side is atrocious, with nearly impossible fast rap that's not well written and has no memorable lines. However, Fight Marker somehow completely nails it, and is one of probably 5 VAs to ever fully nail Trip flow. It's impressive that he not only pulled this off, but maintained an aggressive and fun performance. His yelling is so iconic, especially when he goes from, call that a microwave, ha, and then suddenly is yelling, then I'm popping off, through a distorted effect. This side is so entertaining thanks to Fight Marker's complete commitment to the role. Otherwise, this is simply not a good battle, but I enjoy it one heck of a lot. Number 24, Excitebike vs. Metal Slug. A fun little battle, but still kind of eh. It feels like it was fun to make, with Serena and Danny giving very strong performances and rapping over a pretty high energy beat. The beat's a worse version of another I'll talk about later, but it works pretty well here. Ultimately, the writing's once again just average. It's just kinda happening, not a whole lot that stands out to me. I do like the line iron in the shotgun, dramatic pause, metal slug, with the gun loading sound effect, but that's really about it. I don't have much else to say here. It's a fun listen with unremarkable writing and visuals. Let's move on. Number 23, Dream vs. Kirby. This was the first battle during Rap Battle Week, where Trip dropped 7 battles in 7 days. I've already discussed a few projects from this week in Giratina, Snow Golem, and Microwave, but this was the first battle I ever saw from Triple. I liked it a lot back then, and I still think it's alright. There's very weird rhyme schemes like the others I've talked about, but there are some cool ideas here. The Dream side has a lot of nothing, with Danny not fitting that well, but the Kirby side has some great stuff. There are fun lines like the opener being, when I said return to Dreamland, I didn't think it'd mean this, along with a display of perhaps my favorite art that I've discussed so far. Additionally, there's a scheme that solely talks about Dream's cheating, and I like the concept. It is a little nonsensical word salady, but it actually sounds alright, and I can understand what it's saying in comparison to things like Guardian. The highlight of the battle, though, is the ending. There's a bit of wordplay with the term docs, and I love the way the beat hits each time Kirby says docs. There's some great creativity in the visuals and writing overall. Half of this is not super memorable, and both performances do just feel like the rappers saying the lines and trying to keep up with the flow, but I quite like a bit of this one. Number 22, Captain Crunch vs. Michelin Man. The writing's not any better than the last few I've named. It's still quite a pleasant watch though, due to improvements in other departments. The editing is not Trip's absolute finest, but there are some sleek visuals with that icon focus, and his art is the best I've discussed so far. I also think Swisky's performance is almost as fun as his Gordo, and Michael Stark is great as Michelin Man. The beat's also quite nice and fits the vibe of the lighthearted and short but sweet project quite well. The only lines I really remember are, "You're getting horatioed," and "I will kick you in your crunch berries." Therefore, while the lyrics have the same flaws as the others, this battle's a bit more enjoyable and less of a neutral watch for me. Number 21, Spider-Man vs. Mommy Longlegs. Based on visuals and beat, this is not a standout, but there are 2 elements that make this one more fun than the last few I've named. First, the writing. It has some very low moments like, "I might be a photographer, but I can't even picture this," being a very lame pun in my opinion. However, jokes like getting captured in the net like a fly in a web, and the only thing that sticks to you is a symbiote are quite fun and very easy to digest. The rhyme schemes are a little more toned down than usual, and this allows for the other big positive to shine. That is the Mommy Longlegs performance. Jesse Box VO provides great voice acting with chilling deliveries that are consistently impactful. I like that side of the battle a lot as a result, even if it has some odd writing. All in all, this battle has the same pitfalls as the early ones, but there are still some notable strengths. Number 20, Watchog vs. Cod. This battle was inspired by MF Doom, and one of my favorite battles ever was also inspired by Doom. This one is not at the same level, but it has some enjoyable aspects that fit the tribute well enough. First off, the beat choice is excellent. It is certainly an MF Doom type beat, and I think it fits really well and just sounds great. This aspect greatly benefits the audio, but how did the performances stack up? Well, Dilly and Swaldo both provide very fun rapping performances, but they do have some notable flaws. For Watchog, Swaldo puts a lot of emphasis on the second line of every couplet, and it gets excessive. Some of those lines did not really warrant such a closer type emphasis. He even says, "This is ghost style wavy like a river flow is." The Cod side is stronger performance-wise, with Dilly putting a very fun energy into his performance, but generally be given much worse rhyme schemes. He did a good job on the fast part in the second verse, but nobody could have sold the last 4 lines in my opinion. Let's round this out by talking writing. This is not the finest Doom-inspired writing in a rap battle, but looking at it on its own, I do like a lot of this. Using characters with so little material opens the door to fun puns, kinda like how I did Slope Dude. I'd say there's a lot of good ideas here, but they're not well executed because of that focus on rhyme schemes and the flaws in the performances. Fortunately, there is one line that sticks with me as exceptional, and that is, "all of it off the top like a dorsal fin." That line made me smile when I first heard it, and I still love it. All in all, this project is immensely flawed, but being an enjoyable project with some of the most digestible writing I've discussed so far and a pretty strong audio, helps elevate it above much of Trip's 2022 battles. Number 19, Piglin vs. Sableye. What can I say about this one? It's good, but it doesn't stick with me. It's kinda like Guardian except better in every way. The beat fits well, and I like both performances. The contrast between Taiga's manic energy and Micah's deeper voice is very nice, and not something you always get in Trip battles. The video is better than those that came before it, and the same can go for the writing. It's not flawless, and a lot of the big punches, like the gravestone line, didn't really do much for me, but jokes like "carrots are good for your eyes" and "pigs cool off in mud" are accessible and well executed, so I love that. Not much else to note here. It's well made in all regards, but it doesn't really stick with me, and it's a little boring. Its atmosphere is kinda drab compared to many Trip battles, so it doesn't really stick out to me like a lot of the other fun ones, despite its lack of problems. Number 18, Pink Diamond vs. Guzma. The latest Trip battle. It may be surprising to see this right in the middle of the pack, but it has some of the exact problems as the oldest stuff. Now that we're getting to the more recent things that have more great standout elements, I want to try to give more insightful feedback. In general, I think Trip's good battles have great art and stylish videos, with solid beat choices, maybe some standout performances, creative ideas and characterizations every once in a while, and pretty convoluted writing that's very style over substance. This one has strong characterization to a degree, but it has the style over substance issue in spades. 3 of the 4 verses have completely unmemorable writing to me, and in terms of remembering the punchlines, I don't think I know any of them, outside of the one good verse. Maybe it's because I don't know Guzma, but the only praise I can give the writing in the second 2 verses is that the flow is digestible. There aren't really any lines there. The first Pink Diamond verse is actually quite great, and it saved the battle from being much lower. It has a lot of simple but fun lines such as, "my powers are gone cause you're cracking me up," and that characterization is quite solid from what I know about Steven Universe. I think Nier was a great casting choice, the art is great, and the audio fits Steven Universe super well. This side feels like it had a lot more passion, or at least more ideas that worked. This verse clearly had a lot of care put into the character, and that effort being put into every aspect of the battle makes it very fun, even if Pink Diamond's second verse didn't really stick with me. That said, I greatly dislike Guzma's first verse. Lexi has great energy, and the Hitler of Gems line is alright. But this verse has some of the most broken wording and baffling punchlines in the whole series. The thing with Stone with the Gold doesn't have any information that would help someone who doesn't know who Guzma is understand the line, and the fact that no one commented about it makes me think perhaps no one knows what it meant. Then after that you have, "you'd only win this fight as if you hit me with whatever that made your first servant's eye to split," which I feel like could have easily been changed to something like, "the only way you'd win this fight is if you hit me with whatever thing caused your first servant's eye to split," or something like that. But as it stands, that's a contender for the worst couplet Trip's ever written. All in all, the first 2 verses are half and half, so this gets a middle placement. 17, Gadd versus Dr. Zomboss. By far the most popular triple battle, like 300k views, my gosh. This is no doubt a fun one. Unfortunately, it has odd and convoluted writing that sticks out to me, similar to Guzma. The opening 4 lines are very peculiar, for example. Gadd says, "What have I invented?" It's very clear later on he knows what he invented, so why is he acting confused? Zomboss literally says Alzheimer's hadn't struck. I know this might seem like a nitpick, but it bothers me when a setup for a joke or diss doesn't make any sense, and the diss itself is also very convoluted, because Gadd then says, "You're still about half my intellect is," which is phrased like a compliment. Because he's like, "Despite my genes being in this, you still got all the way to half my intellect." This may, again, seem like a nitpick, but if you say, "Why did the chicken cross the road?" and end with, "He was still on that one side of the road," you can infer he wants to get to the other side, but it's still a badly worded joke. I think the writing in general could have used some revisions. Fortunately, Zomboss' first one is quite catchy. It's not one I get a lot of in terms of substance, but the style is there. It flows nicely, it's a pleasure to listen to, and it's bolstered by Midgecat's very fun performance. I love the way he screams the lines, and he's always been very good with that gravelly, monstrous role, and this is one of my favorites from him. All in all, Zomboss verse 1 really plays into Trip's strengths by providing decent rhyme schemes with strong enough deliveries that I can forgive the lack of interesting substance. There's not much else to say. It's got nice visuals and a similar beat to Piglin. It's very much similar to that battle in the sense that not much stands out, but Zomboss verse 1 does. And for that verse alone, I can understand why this one got pretty popular, and I'm somewhat happy it did. Number 16, Paint Roller versus Turbo Dismount. What a tough one. Similar to Watchog here. There's great elements, but also ones I don't like. The best thing here might be the beat. It fits the characters well and has a beautiful guitar riff. The flow also isn't that bad over this beat, but the problem comes with the way the lines are written and performed. I feel like if I were recording the demo for this, I would have noticed that some lines were very hard to say, especially on the paint roller side. Right from the start, he has to say, "Paint perfect pictures, forget your printer." I feel like Shamario was dealt a bad hand. That said, he also emphasizes a lot of lines in very weird ways, and I think that just goes back to the rhymes being such a big focus that Trip didn't really consider how they would sound when the VAs said them. Things like, "and get a higher number to set," I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. Fortunately, Leo Barkey gives an incredible performance despite the writing having similar issues on his side. He was dealt a slightly better hand, but I'm a huge fan of his voice here, and the way he did the backups with a monotonous delivery while the main vocals were enthusiastic is a unique contrast, but it works so well. Just the way he says, "You should know what affects me, nothing," makes me really happy. That side of the battle is super enjoyable even if the writing's not great. Overall, this battle has strengths. The visuals are good as ever, and that Leo performance is underrated. But I just don't think Trip has found the balance of rhymes and content and lyrics for this one. Number 15, Necrozma vs. Zero. This battle is ambitious. It's mostly run-of-the-mill Trip writing that's not that interesting, but creative ideas in here really do boost the impact of certain lines. The opening establishes a story, and that's a very fun start. I think it's a good way to incorporate that into a battle, and that's one of the highlights for me. I also love a lot of the visuals in particular here. There's a brief animated section, a sprite part in Zero's second verse, and I like that Trip did a few different visual styles for this one battle. Additionally, the beat arrangements and vocal direction are quite solid here. The best example is in the final verse. The way RNG gets so powerful and commanding, and the beat gets more intense when he's saying, "I'll break and smash your brain and pass with flying colors," that makes it my favorite line of the battle, even if the wording is still a little bit confusing. I don't even mind in this one. And then it only gets more intense for the last 4 lines. It's so much fun. The battle doesn't have huge standout moments, but there's a lot of fun small details in here and there's nothing super bothersome about it, so it's pretty successful with some creative ideas and fun overall. Number 14, runerigus vs. silverfish. The first Trip battle and a very strong start. The video is nothing to write home about, but the writing is. It might still be Trip's best writing overall, because it has very smooth rhyme schemes and they're written super cleanly. Even if substance is hit or miss, this tempo works really well for Trip's style. It's not overly fast, but there's no absurd pauses either. Just the final scheme, "There's no stopping the silverfish, every block I can finish it," may be his very best. The punchlines are not the strongest. I find the point of the mask line to be mid, but the rhyme schemes still sell this one. Not much else to say, but it does have phenomenal writing in a lot of ways. It has a serious vibe that I don't love, and yeah, some things are unspectacular, so I don't really go back to it that much, but it still very well may be one of his best in a lot of ways. Number 13, Creeper vs. Among Us. This one's another ambitious battle. It's fully animated, and that is its greatest strength. I mentioned Tripp's skills as an animator a bit, and there are lots of really cool sequences here, like when Creeper goes to the moon. That one's always been very fun. There's also some great stills in here, like the really scary and detailed imposter one. It's one of Tripp's most impressive videos, and I admire the incorporation of so many editing styles, like line editing, and showing clips of reactors who filmed exclusively for this. These styles all mesh together quite well. Besides the visuals, this is not necessarily great. The writing is the epitome of, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and the writing probably misses about 80% of its shots. That said, 20% of this is fun lines like reactor meltdown, contrail, and guess we're both imposters. I like those lines a lot, and many battles below this have no lines I like, so this has to count for something. The one element I really dislike is the beat. It's very obnoxious with the angelic choir and loud bass, and I don't enjoy listening to it. It brings me back to Giratina a little bit, even though those are very different genres. Fortunately, the fun video and fun lines make the viewing experience positive overall, and I still have fond memories of this one. I used to really like it, it would have been first place back when it came out, so I still have to give it a bit of a nice placement. Number 12, Silver vs. Bully. Another that doesn't have many lines that stick with me, and as a result is kinda uneventful like Piglin or Gordo. It does have great strengths that earn it a high spot though, most notably in the audio department. Snakebite126 is a great rapper, and he gives a very strong performance here with no weird emphasis the whole way through. Adam DRB also does a solid job, even if a bit weaker in both the flow and delivery departments. The best aspect though is the beat. It's one of the smoothest in the series, and it fits the vibe of the battle very well. The audio is very good even if I don't go back to this one much, and I don't go back much because the writing is not my favorite. It's not try-hard per se, but it's very rhyme heavy, and I find a lot of the rhymes to just be saying things that are true without actual punchlines. This features a common Tripp trope where the rapper asks rhetorically, how can the opponent be whatever they title themselves, when yada yada yada. Here it happens with, how is the biggest bully wearing khakis in the cardigan? And that phrasing is very weird to me. It's not wordplay, it's just asking a question and not in a very fun or creative way in my opinion. There are some fun punches, like, I stumped Elm, it's a very quick and fun pun, and there's even some good disses, like, Dad made like the fans and forgot about the baby forms, but for every good line, you have, you're the only person to put no between Godfather. What is that? Anyway, it's a pleasant listen, the writing does not do it much for me, but still, it's pretty good. Number 11, Light Yagami vs. Isaac Newton. This battle is by most accounts, not very good. However, I have loved it ever since I first saw it. I think the writing might be the most try-hard in the whole catalog, but there are hints of genius that hook me. Schemes like, he lost to the note-taking god in a show of intelligence, and so you had a book with some facts you took from the back of Hook all he asked of you was to have a footnote, etc, etc. They're very catchy and recapture that silverfish magic. Then you have weird lines with bizarre wordings like, you don't only have parts of it's made out of figs, which could be good, but have issues like switching from plural to singular randomly. There are many other bizarre moments like Lexi being out of breath at the beginning, the line, why would a fruit just might go down? I mean, who talks like that? Then the last part of Light's second verse after the very good scheme I mentioned is just all over the place. Every line overlaps with the last, it's so bizarre. There's virtually no flow at points in this. And some of the rhymes that were put in feel like they just had to fill a line. One of my favorites is when Newton says, have some decency for when you ramble on your ideology, loudly. It sounds like he just added the word loudly on at the end so it would rhyme with rowdy. It's so much fun. I could be here all day talking about this battle's writing. But ultimately, it's Tripp going wild, fully embracing the style approach, sometimes having fun ideas and lines in there that are almost great until they fall off at the end, and this battle would have wowed in 2020 or 2021. It's a relic of the past I think fails on most metrics I value now, but I liked it when I saw it, and I cannot bring myself to move it down, even though Silverfish and others are definitely better. Number 10, Roller Coaster Tycoon vs. Little Inferno. I'm a theme park fan. Heck, I made a Mr. 6 battle, so I was excited for this one. As a theme park rap battle, this is not a masterpiece. There's very few references, but that's generally a smart call because I'm probably the only theme park fan watching battles. Fortunately, this is a very enjoyable battle all around. The video is a simple style, but I like it. Not much to say there, but it's the audio and writing that are the highlights for me. The beat is super laid back, and is serviced by a very confident but fun Carney-type performance from Matt Righteous, and a laid-back but very warm performance from Garbage Gothic. Even when the rhyme schemes get really weird, and there's even fast rap, the VAs both nail it, and make this one of my favorite sounding trip battles. Writing is also quite strong. Even though there's only a few RCT references, they are fun ones that are incorporated quite well in Off the Rails and Plummet to Your Death, I'll Be There to Bring the Heat. The grammar's not perfectly clean, but lines like Tomorrow Corporation, more like decades for that DLC, and the only thing they put out for your series is Your Flame, are simple but effective, and among my favorite lines in a series. Not too much to point out otherwise, it's a small scale but very successful project that I enjoy, even if there's a lack of deep cut roller coaster references. Number 9, Thanos vs. Noah. This battle pumps me up. Undoubtedly flawed, with really weird and convoluted writing. It would be unproductive to go into examples of that though, because that is not why it got 9th out of 34. It got 9th because the beat slaps. This beat is so hype to me, and the intensity works without feeling too obnoxious. It's another Josiah type beat. I definitely do that shoulder bounce when I listen to this battle. Additionally, some of the lines and rhymes are very fun here. I love how it starts with Noah explaining why Thanos can't go on the Ark, even if it doesn't rhyme. These schemes are generally similar to Newton in the sense that they start really good and then turn weird, and I still love them for that. The very final scheme is so cool. It's even a better Godfather line than the silver one with not a god but a father who foster adopted his daughter. And ending on what did it cost as the beat revs up has always been so awesome to me. All in all, it is a blast to listen to. It's got the flaws of the worst battles to some extent, but I don't care. Number 8, Colress vs. Dr. Wily. This battle was made in 100 hours, and it has some things that feel a bit rushed in the writing departments. The worst lines come from the middle of the battle. The most notable are the fast rap that doesn't really have much substance and was clearly difficult for Swisky with his Wily impression, and lines like, everything you ever made either were hauled off. That one has that issue of going from past tense to present tense. But then you have divide from 0, which is a mistake, because anyone can divide from 0. Dividing by 0 is the issue. Ask Slope Dude, 0 is 0 fun. You can divide from 0. Dividing by 0 is undefined! And that's a nitpick though. And fortunately, everything else about this project is fantastic. The beat fits the scientist focus, but it's also very nice, with intense moments just like Thanos vs. Noah. The casting is excellent, and despite the short time frame, there's some very memorable visuals here, like that great art of Wily's castle. Then there's the writing. I mentioned the worst parts, but Colress vs. 1 might be the best in any trip battle. It has similar rhyme schemes to Noah or Newton, but they don't fall off at the end, and they slap the whole way through. Just the scheme, once an honored roboticist haunted by thoughts of his colleague outsmarting him, works so well, and makes so much sense. It flows great, it's easy to say, there is nothing wrong with it, and then you go into the line, you can never be faster than light being a scientist pun. I love science puns like that. If I was writing Miss Frizzle vs. Dr. Wily, that would have been the best line of the battle. This verse flows so nicely, and is delivered with such great voice acting from Lexi, and it also packs in some memorable visuals. This is a collaboration with Sir Rap Battles, so it is more AMV than many trip battles, and it's good AMV. It works really well, some transitions are so cool in addition to being unique for the series, and I love that. The closer for Wily's also very funny. But all in all, the outer two verses are near perfect, and some of the best in any trip battle. Number 7, Polteageist vs. Bartender. 2022 trip writing at its finest. The battle's lyrics are so much fun. Since these characters are very minor, one being a single Pokemon and the other being a game no one's heard of, I think going the route of just making beverage puns and having catchy flows works very well. None of the lines overlap obnoxiously, and the rhyme schemes are not all over the top. It's just a really fun listen. There are good jokes in here like the handlebar line, "Let me spill the tea, you suck," and your whole noggin is looking like a baked bean. This feels like it was just Trip having fun writing some puns, and I love that. Additionally, this is a top tier Trip audio, thanks to both VAs not only selling fun vocal performances, but nailing the flows. Little Flex just never misses, and CHB voices a professional VA who has an awesome voice but still nailed the rapping, just the way he says, "I'm shook. Since I fought a ghost, no, I meant drinks, I could bomb this foe." It's awesome. This battle is a joy to listen to despite being over 2 years old, and it also inspired a lot of my Llamas with Hats battle, which may sound like an insult, but I liked it enough back then that it inspired me a lot, and I still think it holds up as one of Trip's most fun battles in many ways. Number 6, Jenga vs. Frogger. Once again, this is a fun project right up my alley. The beat is very much not a rap battle beat. It's super funky instead, and I don't mind. It sounds great and lends itself to a very catchy experience. This feels like a very fun one to make as well. The visuals are unique for Trip with the sprite animation and the 3D Jenga, so that stands out. What I love most though, is the writing and the Jenga performance. I said Little Flex doesn't miss, and that's true here. Little Flex nails the weird schemes while keeping a fun and confident voice the whole way through, and he has iconic moments like, "I like Frogger, the platformer." Jojovo does trip up a little bit, get it, but they have some fun lines as well. Let's talk about that. The rhyme schemes are pretty fun here, but the lines are quick and fun jokes like in Polteageist. And there are great ones, such as turn his body into traffic jam, shaking to the core like your base is the middle piece, and the closer where the frog gets run over and dies. Simply put, every aspect of this battle is creative and fun. Definitely one of the most accessible Trip battles and one of my most revisited. Underrated, I'd say. Number 5, Bomberman vs. Worms. Now we're getting to the really great stuff. In terms of writing, this is definitely not top 5. It is the same issue as Silver vs. Bully. Very little wordplay, lots of lines are just stating things, the wording is weird, but fortunately, the writing is saved by performances being 2 of the very best in Trip series. Enway as Bomberman has such a lively energy, and Garbage Gothic's worm voice is cute and silly. They make lines like, "My squadron is vigilant," and "You're a copy-pasted sprite, so who's the real clone?" sound awesome. Heck, there's a part where Enway just says, "Bomberman," and it's so much fun. Even if the substance is not great, and there are multiple examples of that odd wording I don't like, I still find most of the writing very enjoyable to listen to because of how fun the performances are. In fact, there's one flow pocket that goes, "I'd be breaking bricks escaping prison mazes when I bust the scene," that I think would have sounded really bad in most Trip battles, but Enway completely nails it. This battle is pure fun thanks to those vocals, but they may not even be the best part of the battle. It's a fully animated battle, more or less, and it's so much fun to watch. I've always appreciated battles where the art and vocals work together to emphasize emotions, and this is a great example of that. When Bomberman's eyebrows appear, it suddenly feels like Enway is getting more serious. It's still super believable that Enway is getting aggressive without the performance turning into their am voice or something. There are also some memorable visuals like Bomberman's facial expressions that I mentioned, blowing himself up, and Worms getting hit by a golf club. The whole thing is a Looney Tunes vibe, and I find that very enjoyable, and it all carries over to the final scene. That ending gag is maybe the funniest in rap battle history. So while this battle does have some older writing, and a lack of excellent jokes within the lyrics, the fun I have with the performances and video more than make up for that. Number 4, Lydian vs. Plantern. What an incredible project. I don't think there's any other battle quite like it. Trip went all out with the music inspiration, with a very chill battle reminiscent of rappers like Kill Bill and Rav. This battle felt like it was all about exploring that musical style, and making a battle successfully fit that vibe on all fronts. And I'd say, it is a success. The best elements is the beat. This beat was not only an excellent choice for that vibe, but actually fits the characters pretty well, and is a joy to listen to. It is, in my opinion, the best beat in any Trip battle, with a chill and unique sound for a battle. It doesn't have the most kick out of any rap battle beat, but it still works thanks to the approach Trip took with the writing. The flow is definitely some of the very best in the series, with very smooth and catchy rhythms that transition beautifully into each other in a way most Trip battles struggle with. This style sounds very pleasant over the beat, and I appreciate Trip's approach of using that rapping style in a battle. Now, it is worth noting, those who like rap battles for strong disses and characterization may be disappointed. I do note that characterization is not a huge focus for Trip, And I do think there's actually some fun stuff in the planter side. There's a little fun personality. He sounds so proud of himself when he says, "I'm the spotlight." And I like that a lot, especially for a literal plant. Lydian is very much just Rosenthal rapping, but they are a good rapper and their voice fits well, so it's not bad. In terms of distance and conventional battle writing, that's not a strong suit here. There's weird stuff, like Lydian saying if Dave wants the night lit, then flick on a light switch to Plantern, which has no arms and therefore can't flick a switch, but oh well. That's actually the least prominent example, but I thought it was funny. The battle does have some good jokes, like, "You came to me because I'm a light and you're a bug," and "How does a plant lamp not get the green light?" But the chill deliveries greatly diminish the impact of the lines. Ultimately, I think the biggest issue here is not striking the balance of the rap and battle sides of the project. I think of this in a similar way as I do Lo-Fi Girl vs. Cassette Girl by Eddie FRB, because both have very chill beats. But I find Lo-Fi Girl stronger in the writing department because it still packs in some great lines with deliveries that add a punch, like "the coronavirus left your viewers with no taste." This is a much stronger battle in the atmosphere department than the substance departments. And while I think the kiss of death for Silver versus Boldy was the same kind of issue, I don't mind the lack of substance as much because of how truly pleasant and creative the audio is. I could listen to this one all day. One final note, the battle's video is certainly top 5 worthy. It captures the chill atmosphere perfectly, with great effects, gorgeous backgrounds, and a variety of beautiful skies that really stick out to me. This is the kind of music I'd expect to hear when just looking up at the stars, and I love that feeling. This battle is not perfect, but it tried something fairly new that I really like, and I hope to see more trip battles with audios this strong in the future. Number 3, Dr. Mario vs. Euro Truck Simulator. I don't even know what to do right now. This is probably not top 3 for most people, but I love this one. The only issue I have is that the idea of the truck being the rapper is kind of poorly communicated until that license plate line. Besides that, and admittedly similar writing issues, yada yada yada, I don't know why, but this one's always been a favorite of mine and has only moved up over time. It feels like Mario prescribed me with some happy pills, because I love this. Let's talk about my 3 favorite elements and then we'll move on. First, this beat choice was ahead of its time. Definitely my favorite of the 2023 battles, save for one we'll get to later. There's a real oomph to it, but it also has a gorgeous synth that I love and puts me in slow motion Josiah mode. Then there's the writing. These rhyme schemes are just as catchy as Planterns, but in a more lively package with tons of great jokes. I love, "Even I can treat all of the bugs that are present in you," "Acting like my waiting room, honestly no patience," "You upgrade while I upgrades, check my PhD," "You're no Dr. Mario, you Dr. Mario," "You couldn't pass a coronavirus test," "It's easier to be a doctor than to play your messy game," "Dentistry's not in my registry, but I'll still take the crown," and especially the closer, "Someone call an ambulance, there has been an accident." All great jokes, and that last one's especially strong for the performance. Let's talk about that. Yuki Gloom is a very talented rapper. They have great roles like Jeff the Killer and Sonic EXE for Freshy Canal. This might be my favorite they've ever done. It's more chill, but there's a subtle yet aggressive commitment to it that allows every line to absolutely hit. They really do sound like they've just been on the road for a while, they're done with everything, but they're gonna rap their absolute best. The idea of a truck rapping sounding this sick is so funny, and I'd probably call this my favorite performance in the series. It's just great rapping with untouchable flow and delivery. I do struggle to justify such a high placement for this low stakes battle, but it does everything right in my opinion, and I love watching it. Number 2, Doodle Jump vs. Elevator Action. I love this one. It was my favorite for a while, and definitely the best of the top 5 so far by a good margin. I don't have any major problems with it, so let's jump into what makes it great. The coolest aspect is the visuals. There was a focus on using black bars for transitions and making the scenes, and I think this is not only a stylish and creative appearance, but a very innovative concept. I've never seen anything like it, and I hope to see more like it in the future. I've taken inspiration from it before to a degree, and I think more should. It's an awesome concept that makes the videos stand out compared to most of the other well-edited battles. Right from the title card, it had me hooked. What's another big plus? Well, this battle is so catchy. It is another very funky beat like Jenga, but I think the flow is much tighter the whole way through. The writing helps make this the catchiest of Tripp's battles, but it also happens to be straight up his very best writing. I love schemes such as a monster rocket and noggin that's popping shots, because it's so up-tempo and smooth, but the schemes don't feel super try-hard, and they still stand out over the standard flow of a good amount of battles. I think I may just be a sucker for the faster tempo of this one, but either way, it's undoubtedly the best lyrics in any trip battle. I have no doubts about that. Not every wording is great, but these lines are easy to understand. This has that trope I don't like from Silver, but it's good here in how is an Asian supposed to be sneaky wearing bright orange? It's like, yeah, good question. That makes sense. That's well worded. Why? Why are you wearing bright orange, man? Anyway, the lines are goated here, being accessible, funny, and simple but effective disses and jokes. This battle has strong lines, enough of them that I could be here all day. So I'll just talk about a few favorites. I love Doodler's jumping from platform to platform. It's not only an awesome visual, but it provides a great pun allowing for a cute flex about Doodle Jump success. The line, "My lines will cause a fire hazard and he needs to take the stairs," is such a great joke. Fire jokes can be stale in battles, but this is a great incorporation that only could have been used against elevator action, and I greatly appreciate that. Jokes like this that are only for one character, that no one would ever use besides Trip, are really what I love about Trip using these characters. Doodle Jump's closer, gets the elevator action when in Change Stories, is a way stronger diss than I thought an elevator action battle would get, featuring a tasteful pause and one heck of a roast to end out his side of the battle. Then it's followed up with, "Oh, you had a second verse? My bad." It's that "oh, you're still going" trope, and I don't normally like that, but this is one of the best uses because of how funny and dumb with it Seth sounds. And he clears his throat and then just says, "Did it take 10 years for you to write that?" And I laugh every time. I can understand why the rhyme scheme of Taito, Itota, Taito, tightly would not be up everyone's alley, and things like that are not perfect, but these punchlines feel universally great to me. This battle is simply a blast, capturing the funky vibe of Jenga but with tighter flows, more memorable punchlines, and an underrated but truly exceptional video. Number 1. Ness vs Katamari. Before getting into the metrics I've been focusing on like beat, writing, and visuals, I need to say, this battle stands out from the others in terms of the use of the characters. This is the only Trip battle that felt like he truly wanted to use these two characters to their full potential, and he went all out. There is nothing wrong with his style of just using obscure arcade games and Pokemon, but this has things no other Trip battle has, and that's where we get into the elements I've been talking about. The first thing to stand out is the beat. The first custom produced beat in the series, it's amazing. It is a very fun and cute vibe, but also just sounds gorgeous, and is a solid second place for Trip beat choices. It feels like the first battle where Trip had a real vision for the audio side, and as a result, that instrumental is phenomenal. This is a joy to listen to, like Lydian, but it also has much stronger writing. I think it has lots of good lines, like, "You can read my palms after they're done beating your face, kapow!" This is among the cleanest and most fun writing Trip has done, but the best thing about it is the way it successfully introduces the characters, for those who don't know them. A common mistake in battles, in general, can be to make lots of deep references that people who don't know the characters won't appreciate because they don't understand the character at all. This battle has lines dedicated to establishing what Katamari is, like, trapped in his sleep you had to capture his dreams, and these setups also establish the characters in ways that help make this hit harder. For example, the prince says, "A mess to your party and had to vent to your mommy," coupled with a visual of sadness, leading into the very solid diss, "How does a psychic not control his own sense of belonging?" This writing is very passionate, clearly, showing great knowledge of the characters and undoubtedly many major references in it, but even I can greatly enjoy it despite not knowing them. Speaking of references, this video is insane. Even against the beautifully atmospheric Lydian, fully animated Bomberman, and innovative elevator action, this battle wins the best video award for me. There is so much art, and there's often a ton going on. There's ducks appearing, so many things, you transition from scene to scene so fast, and yet, it never feels overbearing, and I can appreciate everything on screen. The storyboarding is masterful, and definitely my favorite from Trip. He clearly had an idea for what each scene was going to look like, he made killer art for all of them, and this especially rings true on the Katamari side. Just look at some of the scenes I'm showing right now. There is so much happening, but it all looks so beautiful and transitions so smoothly between scenes. I love it. This is straight up a contender for the best PNG editing video of all time. What more is there to say? The video, beat, and writing can be enjoyed by anyone, and I have to imagine a Katamari fan would call this one of the best battles of all time. And it is great. Also, I'll give bonus points for capping off Trip's very solid 2023, with a beautiful outro thanking everyone who helps in that year, including me, and features the prince saying "see you again," like in the actual game, and that makes me so happy every time I see it. This is a wonderful battle that clearly had a ton of work put into it, and it absolutely paid off. It's a favorite of mine in general, and definitely my favorite battle from Thribble. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below your thoughts, and stay tuned for some more battles. I hope to have one more this year. Maybe I'll make another ranking by the end of the year, probably not, but look forward to a great 2025. Subscribe for more content, I'll see you next time.